So you notice the two Michaels are back in the news here lately in Canada, and rightly so, I guess. They're both charged with espionage, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, back a while back, a couple of years ago. Shortly after Meng Wanzhou was detained in Canada on an extradition warrant out of the United States, Meng Wanzhou being the founder of Huawei Phone's daughter. Okay, so this is just part and parcel of what's been going on in the world between the United States and China with all this national threat and trying to thwart the Chinese companies, from TikTok to Huawei to DJI drones, to you name it. It's been an ongoing thing. But the Canadian government, well, all of the governments around the world, started pointing their finger at China, stating that they were arbitrarily detaining the two Michaels because in retaliation for Meng Wanzhou being detained. And by the way, Meng Wanzhou was released and nothing happened of that. So she was detained for absolutely no reason. They asked her to admit she did something wrong, and she refused to do that, and that was basically it. But they released Meng Wanzhou, and then shortly after, and this didn't look good, they released the two Michaels in China, and it was basically understood that the two Michaels were arbitrarily detained by the Chinese government in retaliation for the detainment of Meng Wanzhou. Fast forward to today's date, and Michael Spavor. You see, Michael Spavor owned an NGO, non-governmental organization, that did cultural exchanges between North Korea and China and the rest of the world, basically. Tourism, business ventures, sports events and things like this. Okay, well, that's good. So he has knowledge of that area of the world, based in China but doing stuff in North Korea. Michael Kovrig was a diplomat, a Canadian diplomat that spent, I think, between 2010 and 2016 as a diplomat in China. Part of his time was in Hong Kong, and the other part of his time was in Beijing. And Michael Spavor unwittingly gave Michael Kovrig information that he probably shouldn't have. But Michael Kovrig, because he was a spy for the Canadian government living in China under the guise of being a diplomat type thing, runs to the Canadian government, who runs to the American government with this information. So they both got charged with espionage and ended up in prison here in China. And then they let them go because China actually has a heart, and they didn't want these guys. But if you're doing stuff wrong, I guess. You see my background, guys? See my background? This is Nanning City. This is the Landong, or the Chaoyang area, and all of these buildings in the background, especially these ones only came up over the last couple of years. But all of these buildings, except for the Yongjiang Hotel's been there, that old one by the bridge. But all the rest of this stuff is all new. Wasn't here when I started coming to China back in 2003. So this is a pretty new city, guys. Anyway, let's get back to the two Michaels. So Michael Spavor, he had his nose out of joint. He knew what was going on. He gets back to Canada, gets a lawyer, and sues the ass off the Canadian government. Yes, he did. And he was awarded $7 million for his time and trouble. Canadian taxpayer dollars, you know what I mean? It's not the government paying it, it's taxpayers like myself. I don't like to see Canadians detained for any reason, but if they're in a country like China and they're doing things, they're spying, or they commit espionage like the two Michaels did, whether unwittingly or not, but Spavor was taken advantage of by Kovrig. Okay, and we all know that now that it's come out in the news. All right, so they settle out of court just for the fact that dragging this through court. Now there's a thing called full disclosure in Canadian court, which means that the government would have had to give full disclosure to Spavor's lawyer, and then everybody would know what went on, and they didn't want that. So they settled out of court, and Spavor has $7 million extra in his bank account now. He can retire and be happy with that, I would imagine. His lawyer probably got 10% or whatever a lawyer takes. But it wasn't an arbitrarily detained couple of Michaels. Meng Wanzhou was arbitrarily detained. You see how it, after a while, during the little crisis of when it's happening, they're pointing their fingers at China saying, bad China, bad China, bad China. But when it all works its way out at the end, then it's oh, China was on the right side of this one. Oh, Canada was on the wrong side, taking directions from the United States on the Meng Wanzhou thing, of course. But you know how media is so strong in the West, and they can brainwash all of their citizens to see what they want them to see. And all they wanted to see, even when the Canadian government knew that Coburg was a spy and he was committing espionage in China, but they still go on the news and lie their faces off to the Canadian public, knowing that someday it might come out. But by that time, well, that's old news, and just move on to something else. You know what I mean? So when you hear China bad, my background, man, I'm telling you, this is quite a spectacular little view back there, isn't it? But when you hear the news in Canada, the United States, Australia, Great Britain, all of these places over there, and they keep telling you that China is somehow bad, question it. Look back on subjects like this one here and say, well, geez, maybe China was on the right side and Canada was on the wrong side and the United States was on the wrong side. And I think you're seeing more and more of that as time goes on, because one side isn't doing it correctly. The other side, well, you never know. Both sides might be doing the same thing. I don't know. But in this particular instance, the Canadian government was in the wrong. And that is my story for today. People swimming in the river, people hanging out, people fishing over here in the river. You know, they've got the kids, they've got the old people, they've got, oh yeah. China is a beautiful place with beautiful people, and they've been given a bad reputation around the world because the Americans want to compete with China, and they can't do it on a level playing field, so they've got to distort things. Anyway, that's another video from Gweilo 60 on the bank of the Yong River here in Nanning, China, southern China, Guangxi Zong Autonomous Region. It's beautiful out today, I think 25 degrees, and like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, peace out. Bye now. Before I go here today, I just want to show you something that sort of explains how the Chinese people are here in China and how different it is than Canada and the United States. They have a TV here. They've got a guy walking around with a play gun. He did that in the States or in Canada, they would shoot you. They have a TV here playing underneath a bridge. If you had that, and it stays there 24/7, if you had that in the Western world, it would be gone the first night. But here in China, it's different. They don't have a threat, a gun threat. They don't have rampant thievery. They don't have those things that, you know, under this bridge would be homeless people and drug addicts if it was in the West. Because this is like just about 9 million people in the city, guys, and it's not the same as the Western world. This is a more innocent world. This is a better world. This is a cleaner world. This is the future of the world. If every country acted like China does, wouldn't it be a nice place to live? Well, it is a nice place to live. That's why I live here.